what'd you make of the offseason? Just obviously the moves that they were able to make. A lot of the action had more to do with the buyout market, but very strategic which players they brought over. And I don't want to undermine this, and you could tell me what you think, but they still got some of those assets. They did not. They at least have put themselves in a position where, whether it's expiring contracts or a Dalton Connect or some draft capital, they still have those in their pocket as well. Just what did you make of the offseason?
So I'll start with the player that they lost in Dorian Finney-Smith. He was an important part of last year's team, and obviously that trade occurred in December prior to the Luka trade on February 1st, and he was really important in having last year's season go the direction it did. And I understand it ended with first-round disappointment, but it was a very successful season. And then Dorian Finney-Smith was a big part of that, and he was a really well-liked member of that locker room and the coaching staff. Obviously, JJ showed his trust in him by having him be one of the only 5 guys he played in the second half in Game 4 in Minnesota. However, when you part with someone like that, it puts pressure on you to make sure that you use that cap space wisely. And I think on the surface, I have to say that it was a worthy gamble to be able to turn that cap space basically into 2 players. You get DeAndre Ayton, you get Jake LaRavia. Now, you could say that, what's Jake LaRavia done in this league? He played on Memphis after Memphis had, kind of fallen off as a Western Conference contender. He played for Sacramento last year when they were kind of out of it after the De'Aaron Fox trade. Sure, you could also say, though, he has good size. He's young. He has a multi-dimensional skill set on offense and brings a competitive kind of front to the defensive end. So I can talk myself into that. As for DeAndre Ayton, I mean, his numbers speak for themselves. He's played big-time basketball of consequence in the postseason before. Luka Doncic has an affinity for him. They came into the league at the same time in 2018. They were repped by the same agency. That one, sure, I can rubber stamp that one too. And then the last one, I don't think any Laker fan wanted to see Jordan Goodwin go because he showed flashes, and you kind of like his story that the Lakers identified him as someone that could help them, and had patience while he got himself back into shape, and he had some games that were meaningful down the stretch. However, the upside of a Marcus Smart, who's 3 years removed from Defensive Player of the Year, you had to go for. So I just like the idea. So, for instance, I was walking out, and I reported this in a story that ran on ESPN.com in May. I was walking out of the arena with LeBron James after they lost to the Wolves, and he was commenting on, look what the Wolves did. They went out after a Western Conference Finals appearance, and they added players that can help them. Cat was really good, but then Cat turns into 2 players in Dante and Julius Randle. In today's NBA, you got to have a deeper bench and more options to go to. Well, to me, this decision by the Lakers kind of follows that same model. Like, yes, Dorian Finney-Smith was a really important piece, but if by moving on from Dorian Finney-Smith, you can turn it into 2 pieces that you feel like can be reliable in the playoffs, I think there's some wisdom there. So I think on its surface, you got to say it's been a positive offseason. What could make it a tremendous decision is what you alluded to, being able to hold on to those assets, and now you can continue to monitor the trade market. You continue to see how teams either decide that they're going for it this year or not going for it this year. And, maybe there's a team out there that really is going to go for it and really needs a stretch 5 in Maxi Kleber, so they trade for him. Or maybe there's a team that's out there that is not going to go for it, and they want to get off a guy that has multi-years left on his deal, and then they want a Maxi Kleber for the other reason because he's an expiring contract. Like, that's really smart. And, of course, you retained your 2031 first-round draft pick, which holds a ton of value, as we saw from the transaction season thus far this summer. First round picks still hold a ton of value, probably even more so than they did in the last CBA.
I guess just this point of the year, so this point of the offseason, July 30th right now, is it more likely you think that there's just less transactions by the time we get to the start of the season? So even like you were just talking about with the assets and teams out there that might look at a contract the Lakers have, say, hey, that's expiring, perfect for us. That's exactly what we're looking for. We want less money on the books. Do you feel like if there are more deals to be had probably after the season starts, or do you still think, and I think this is maybe more of just an NBA general offseason question, do you think there's still moves to be had between now and I guess you could say over the next 30 days? Or do you think if there are moves made, it probably starts after the season starts?
In general, like I think most of the league business is put to bed. Obviously, the Golden State Warriors have a lot of stuff to
Sure.
figure out, and as ESPN, Shams Charania and Anthony Slater were reporting, like really that just comes down to Jonathan Kuminga, and once that contract gets settled, I anticipate Kuminga being on the Warriors next year. I couldn't guess right now what the number and player option situation will look like, but once that gets figured out, then we anticipate Al Horford joining them as well, and then I have heard that D'Anthony Melton is a I guess likely option there, and then Slater reported that Seth Curry could be joining there. Like that's a big bundle of business that needs to get figured out.
The trickle effect of the Kuminga.
Right. Then there's a few things that will affect around the league after that, but I think this is the team that the Lakers will go into the regular season with. Now, it doesn't mean that Rob is shutting down business. Like if he gets a call and there's something to consider, of course it will be considered. It's not like they view this team as a finished product. I think it's just more of the realistic look that all these other teams have kind of done their work already. And once you do your work, you kind of want to see, even if you have a inclination your team's going to go one of two directions, you still want to see it for the first 20, 30 games. And also there's the idea that contracts that have already been signed this summer won't be eligible to be traded till mid-December, and that's kind of when business picks back up. So I think this will be the team that the Lakers are going to. And obviously when you're considering maybe bigger deals as well, it's helpful to have an open roster spot like the Lakers have right now.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, if that's the case, I called a pretty successful offseason. Again, nothing, they addressed specific needs. I think they were able to get players, I don't know if you want to call it pennies on the dollar, but kind of, right? You didn't have to pay $8 and $35 million. You didn't have to pay Marcus Smart $20 million, or I think that was his number around there.
Yep.
So I think to be able to address that, and I love what you said about, and they have the assets, so they could still obviously do work based on the assets that they have.
Also, just quick interjection here.
Yeah,
I've covered the Lakers. I covered them back in the Kobe years, and I've covered them since 2018. I was trying to do a quick, back of a napkin math on this. I think in the last 7 seasons, Rob Pelinka has made a significant or somewhat significant midseason trade, 5 of them. So, that has been the standard operating procedure for this Lakers front office. And so clearly they view that to be a competitive advantage versus put all your chips to the table in the summertime, because when you do that, you're stuck with that versus you get a chance, just like the other teams out there, as I mentioned, that want to see what their team looks like the first 20, 30 games. You get a chance to see what your team looks like that first 20, 30 games, and then make a more specific target in what you think could help the team. Also, while maintaining flexibility, should something wild like a Luka Doncic come on your plate, that you have some sort of asset collection to be able to be in that conversation.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think that whatever we think today, by the time you get to December, we're going to have no idea of the structure of what other teams think about themselves or players that might become available that we don't know. So it's a good observation, and you're right. He has been very active around the trade deadline. Thank you very much for watching the clip. Just want to give a shout out here to one of our partners, the Wallace Firm. They are official injury attorney of the Sliwa Show and Hoops Talk, the entire channel. If you are ever in a need, and I hope you're not, but some type of serious injury with yourself or a family member of yours, I would like to personally help you by introducing you to the best in the business, Brad Wallace and the Wallace Firm. Also got a URL out here that you can use as well. Just go to wallacewins.com/Sliwa. Thank you for their partnership, and thank you for being a part of the Sliwa Show.